So making videos has kind of taken a backseat for a little bit here. Still working on a lot of this documentary stuff. I feel like there's so much footage that I have so far, but I feel like not all of it fits into the story I want to do, so that's definitely causing some problems, I guess. It's a lot more complex to actually work on something like this than I initially thought. And I know I've said that before, but it's like there's just so much stuff to do to get done. All of this like pre-set up work, and it's definitely not stuff that I thought about beforehand, which is fine. It's been like a big learning experience in like a really positive way, and it's making me appreciate the documentary process more for when I actually watch documentaries. In all honesty, I watch a lot of documentaries, like a lot. There are so many different stories that can be told through that form of film, this form of film, like where people are talking and sharing their experiences. And I feel like it's an underappreciated genre. Like when I've talked to people about how, oh, I'm making a documentary, they're like, well, you're not making a movie. And it's like, it's not going to be cinematic like something like Marvel or DC or, you know, even like a AAA title that's a video game. Like that's not what it's like. It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be a real life telling of a story. And I feel like because of all this Hollywood nature of not nature, what's the word, all this Hollywoodized stuff that we are consuming makes us sometimes forget what the actual people in real life are like, what people like me are like, and the misrepresentation of disabled people in media, as an example, the misrepresentation of people with chronic illness in media written from an ableist perspective. So when you have the opportunity, like I do, to be able to tell a story, to be able to tell my own story, at least a portion of it, it's a daunting task, but it's also like, I want to show it for what it is. I want people to be uncomfortable when they watch it. I want people to have a hard time watching it in the sense of like, wow, this person might be crying or whatever. So what? That's part of the human condition. People cry in cinema all the time. People are always acting out that emotion of sadness to invoke that feeling in the viewer, but why is that stuff not shown more in documentaries? Why is it always more like matter of fact, like this is how this is and I felt like this at the time, and not showing those things? Yeah, it's probably gonna make me feel like embarrassed to some degree, showing a certain level of vulnerability, which I may not be 100% comfortable with, but how does anything change within our own comfort zone? It doesn't. We have to get outside. We have to get outside of our own comfort to experience life, to show things in a different light. And if we don't do those kinds of things, how does anything change ever? It doesn't. So I have to make people uncomfortable. At least that's what I've come to the conclusion of that being, is I have to make people uncomfortable. I have to make people see things from a different perspective. I have to help people realize that regardless of what we're living with what we're fighting in life, our stories should be heard and told, and we should be able to express ourselves in a way that may make other people uncomfortable. I'm not talking about like, you know, violence or anything like that. I don't support violent behavior at all. I think that it's a toxic thing, part of the human condition, that's something that needs to be expunged or at least explored as to why these kinds of things keep happening and where we're going wrong in society, so that we can turn that on its head and perhaps maybe change it, stop it from happening, or get people the resources and help that they need when those kinds of things happen. But when it comes to like chronic illness and the uncomfortableness that it brings in society, why is there less stories in the form of a documentary exploring a person as a whole? Why are there less stories about people and who they are instead of what they live with? It just seems like there's this segregation and separation that happens between the person, what they are, and what they live with, and it's turned into this kind of linear plot line, usually written from a health privileged perspective, about how people with illness are simply their illness. And that's not it. Like, I'm an artist. I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a lover of cinema. And I feel like if someone else was to do my story, if someone else was to film it, it would just be turned into this inspirational porno movie, for lack of better wording. And that's not what I want it to be. Yes, I can understand why people on the outside view people with chronic illness who go after their dreams as inspirational. I do, I understand that, I get it. But at the same time, if they were not sick, would people be saying the same thing? This is a question that I've rattled around in my brain for over 3 years now. Would people still call me inspirational if I didn't have any of the diseases and I was still doing all of the things that I was doing? Would it be inspiring not to just give up on your dream and to continue to push forward? Would it be inspirational? If the answer is no, then isn't there some undertones of ableism within this? Living with illness is not easy, and I don't want it to come across like, oh yeah, it's easy to live with the stuff that I live with. It's not. It's extremely isolating, and the fact that people, I don't know, just give up after a certain amount of time, and maybe I'm partially to blame for that because, you know, I'm dealing with a whole bunch of stuff that most people don't want to listen to me talk about, which is also something that goes to show that there's this weakness or this, I don't know, inability to cope for some, where they don't want to hear about how hard it is. But I believe that we should talk about how hard it is. I believe that our stories need to be heard, and that's why I've offered and said to people before, like, if you want to tell your story on here, I'm happy to help you, and I'm sorry that it takes me sometimes a couple weeks to get back on YouTube to do videos or to talk to you guys about things. A lot of it has to do with my schedule right now and how busy things are, but also my mental health isn't the best at the moment, to be honest. And maybe I can go more into detail about that in the next one. But I should perhaps end this video for now. I do appreciate you being here and checking out my content and listening to me ramble sometimes about just random stuff. These videos are very cathartic and helpful for me, so I really hope that they're helpful for you as well. Thank you for joining me for Stream of Consciousness, because that's generally what I do here on this channel, is I just talk and lay things out the way that they are. So I will talk to you later. Bye-bye! Ah, I didn't hit the stop button.